a father of 10 children, a common man at the end of things, whose life was filled with mystical graces and ended with an unusual little twist. Did he really end up abandoning his family? He lived for 20 years without eating a single bite of food. However, there was one thing that sustained him. Want to think more about heaven and less about your daily trifles? Here is the patron saint for you. Some people think that being a saint is a thing of the past. Or maybe it's for those priests, nuns, and people called to the religious life. Like those heralds of the gospel, with that habit they wear, that big rosary that they carry and that they pray every day, with that even bigger cross that makes a really strong statement. Those are the ones called the Holy Ghost. I, on the other hand, live in the real world. I don't think that sanctity is for me. I take the dog out after work. I take care of the kids after all. I try to be a good neighbor. I'm just, normal. However, I do give to charity. I go to church on Sunday. And, I'm even starting to watch the Heralds channel. And I really want to do God's will in my life. Well, if you truly desire to do God's will, you're on the right track. Give thanks to God. And don't think that holiness is only for a few select ones. No, everybody is called to sanctity. St. Nicholas of Flue was a normal person, just like all of us. He had a charming life going in the little house he had built in the Swiss Alps. He was from a well-to-do peasant stock, the father of a large family. He served in the military, and extremely courageous, he was promoted to captain. He reportedly fought with a sword in one hand and a rosary in the other. Wait. A man who went to battle with a rosary? Of course. And how different would today's world be if the power of the rosary was well known? How many people do I know whose lives have changed, and take my word for it, just because they started to pray the Holy Rosary? Throughout his life, Nicholas received many mystical graces, and he even had visions. A normal houseman who has visions? Why not? God gives the graces he pleases to whom he pleases. We don't know exactly what kind of mystical graces he received, but Professor Pliny once imagined what they could have been like. After serving in the military, Nicholas became a judge. So he imagines him judging a case. He's there, listening to both sides. All of a sudden, his face is illuminated. His gaze becomes more and more distant. He's in ecstasy. The tribunal becomes silent and full of admiration. Everybody's looking at Nicholas to see what's going to happen. And then it happens that the opposing sides start to lose their hatred for one another. And after all, peace is made. And when Nicholas comes back to himself after the ecstasy, the case is already resolved. It kind of sounds like something we hear of in the Old Testament. There's a quarrel, Moses goes up the mountain, speaks to God, he comes down, and everything's resolved. With God in the center, everything becomes easier. It's enough to have a little bit of faith. Now, after 9 years as a judge, he longed to give himself even more fully to God. He retired to a farm where he tended to a flock. And he continued receiving mystical graces. Professor Pliny imagines Nicholas at the end of a long, tiring day, at the hour of the Angelus. It's 6 o'clock. The bells of the church start to ring, ding dong, ding dong. And Nicholas blows a horn to round up his sheep. The sun is setting. The sheep make their way over. The beautiful Swiss Alps start to fade away in the background as the rays of the sun become dimmer and dimmer. And then all of a sudden, an angel appears and starts speaking to Nicholas. He shows him heaven and other wondrous things. Another angel, meanwhile, comes and takes care of the flock. When Nicholas comes back to himself after the celestial vision, the sheep, where are they? They're already inside the stable, safe and sound, guided by the hand of the gentle angel. Now, to elevate our thoughts is a constant battle. To constantly think about sublime things is not easy. And it's a struggle for all of us. Let's be down to earth. Who can say, I am one who always thinks about heaven? Never has an earthly thought dared to enter into my soul. Now, I told you that he would be a good patron saint if you would like to think less of your daily problems and more about heaven. Well, that's not because he was a mystic, but it's because he also had trouble with this point, but he didn't give up. And that's why he is a saint. In one of his mystical visions, he saw a lily being eaten by a horse. A lily being eaten by a horse? Exactly. It was God telling him that the cares of this worldly life were swallowing up his spiritual life. And so what happened? To be honest, we don't have all the details. We know that at a certain point, during a spiritual trial, he went to a holy priest for advice. The priest told him that the way was to contemplate the sufferings and the passion of our Lord. And then we see him do something very unusual. At about the age of 50, we're in the 15th century, he gathered his family around and asked permission from his pious wife, Dorothy, to depart from home as a wandering pilgrim. Heroically, she agreed, not something easy for a wife to do. And so he set off. But during his journey, do you know what happened? As he was laying under a tree, he was seized with such a violent gastric spasm that he thought he would die then and there. He lived, but from that time on, he lost all desire for ordinary food and drink. For the next 20 years, he lived as a hermit close to his old home. But despite his seclusion, he became a wise spiritual guide to kings and paupers from all across Europe, and his only food was none other than the Holy Eucharist. He ate nothing else, not even locusts and wild honey like St. John the Baptist. We need a good dose of faith just to believe that this happened. This is not something normal. This is not something natural. Indeed, it isn't. The saints show us that heaven is much closer than we could ever imagine. Do you want to help unite heaven and earth? Then subscribe to our channel and share this video. And don't miss out on our next one. Salve Maria.
If you like this video, press the like button and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos.